Welcome back to the channel. We're back at Spectacle Island making a Viking Longhouse. Let's get building. Gaming for XP, welcome back. Of course, as soon as I start building, it's started raining, but never mind. So this is going to be, thank you so much for the response to the Sea Huts video that I put up last week. It inspired me to build something that I've been looking at for a while, quite a while. Inspired by the Viking Longhouses. Now, I warn you that most of this build is going to be sped up because it took quite a long time, and although it's a big area, there's a lot of replication here. So I'm using mostly cabin in the woods for this again, and again I've challenged myself to come up with something again that looks a little bit different but also fits in with what we've done previously. So I'm using the parts from the second cabin in the woods, not the first one, but I do use the log cabin pieces here as well. So it's quite a big structure. It's about four wide and 7 across. So it's a large structure. Once I finished the build, actually, in hindsight, probably would have made this even bigger. But never mind. I think you'll be pleased with how it's going up. So using those long wall pieces to start with. Now, I wanted another elevation above those long pieces, but I didn't want that to be as tall. So I've used those smaller long cabin in the woods log pieces. Put the roof on, chuck the roof on, and we have these end pieces which you've seen me use with the sea huts, and they fit perfectly on both ends, just like that. So as you can see, it's a pretty simple structure to build. There's nothing too hard about it. These beautiful end cap pieces just finish it off nicely. Although those were on the sea hats, I didn't actually show you where they were and how to put them on. So we just ran to the other end and put it on the other side. And there we go. Fantastic. So the inspiration for this, I had a whole lot of photos and stuff that I'd researched, and this particular one caught my eye. Now I've slowed it down. I've gone into the warehouse tab. Now you can use either the warehouse or the barn tab for this, but you need this specific roof part, this part here. And you'll see it's very important that you get this first part right, and you'll see I've left in where I actually don't get this right, and how I rectify it, because if you don't get this first part right, it will throw this whole section out. So there we go. Just trying to line it up, and you will have to try and glitch this in somehow. I'm not sure whether you can use the pillar or the scaffolding might, if you don't have the place anywhere tool. Now, so what I do is I use that end piece plus these standard pieces, and I can tell straight away that there's something not quite right with this corner piece. So what I'll do is I'll put another piece on the other side and just see if it will snap, which it won't. So that tells me that this corner piece is out completely. So better to try and do that, do a couple of samples and try and figure out how to best do this first, because as I said, this has got to be absolutely spot on, this corner piece, for this to work. And again, this won't snap, which tells me it's not correct, it's not right. So that will on that side, but on the other side it won't. So we will go and try and rectify this in a second. So I'll get rid of that piece there. Yep, and I can see it's not square towards me. So it's a bit tricky, but it's like I said, it's worth spending the time just getting this right, and it needs to be. There we go. That's about the angle you want, about there. And now everything should now snap to this. And it actually works out much better than it did when I done a quick trial run, because it lines up, this corner piece lines up perfectly, and if you get that first piece right, the whole roof will just line up all the way around. So now it's just a case of rinse and repeat all the way around the structure. There we go. So it, as ever when you're building in Fallout, try and get those kind of elements correct straight away. I don't necessarily fall off here, but there's a lot of obstacles in my way. And you see that corner snaps perfectly on there and all the way around, and it should perfectly snap to and line up with the other roof, just like that. Bang. There we go. Perfect. It took me a while to figure this all out. It wasn't completely straightforward, and hence I had to have at least one trial for parts of this. So I'm using the barn tab supports. As you can see, I flicked through a whole range of these, but these are the ones that seem to be the best. And again, this is rinse and repeat once. The big thing with this is getting your spacing right, and then it's just the case of dropping them in. You can see there's some spacing issues there, but I will fix that up a little bit later. We'll just take that one this way and we'll put it round the side. Generally what I do is I'll snap them to that connector in between the foundations. So each foundation has got a kind of connection point. There you go, right there. And that's generally where I'll snap these. And I've just noticed I missed one there, but that's okay, I can I can fix that. There we go, and right on the edge. And you can see that one of the big things you have to do with foundations is make sure they're high enough to clear everything. And, you know, I've built it in Spectacle Island. It's like a little bit of a gully that I've built it in, so it I had to be sure that it would be high enough. And even then, you know, you can see that at that far end it's quite low to the ground. So there you go, guys. That's the basic shape and the basic foundation for the whole build. And now we need to just start adding some extra pieces. Now, in the original build, or in the photo that I took the inspiration for, it was a series of pillars, but I've decided to put my own flavour on it. So I'm using these railings from the Vanilla Extensions barn tab, and I end up finding that the single ones for some reason snap much better than the double ones, so it takes me a long time to get these in, and towards the end they're fighting me a little bit, so it takes quite a while. But again, I've sped it up because it's just rinse and repeat time. Once you know how to put these in, it's just, yeah, a case of getting them all in. And that's the thing with a large structure like this. A lot of what you're going to do is going to repeat. And now I realise there's a pillar missing there, but it is very much rinse and repeat to get the structure looking uniform. So you can see that actually looks nice. I think it's definitely the right decision to put these railings in as like this. I love the look of those sea huts so much. Just while we're doing the railings, I love the look of the sea huts so much. I've actually made one of those into my player home now at Spectacle Island. That was a really enjoyable build, and it was one of those builds where things just kind of came together fairly quickly. And the same thing kind of sort of happens here too. Once I'd figure out how I was going to build this, because again, as I said last time, you can get influence for a number of places, but then you've got to try and figure out exactly how to build things, and that can usually be the tricky part. So just while we're struggling with the last of these railings, you'll see that menu for Place Anywhere pop up a few times. I've been experimenting on using Place Anywhere for various other things just lately, so I apologise if that menu, you'll see it a lot, because it activates when I do the anti-shimmer trick now. So for some reason these railings right in the corner here fight me, and of course they do, because they're the very last thing that we want to put in. We'll get them in fairly shortly. The reason this is sped up as well is this probably took all up about an hour, or a little bit over an hour to finish. And what I'm realizing, of course, is that just lately, what I've been realizing is it's the building part of it is the easy part. It's actually the decorating that takes the large amount of time. So the most of the building probably took me about half an hour, 40 minutes to get done. So it's but as opposed to some of the bigger buildings that I've done in Fallout, this one was pretty straightforward. So admire our work. Yep, all looks good, and I might just cut to the next scene because you don't want to see me playing around with these railings for the next 10 minutes. And again, that's what sometimes gives you causes you time, is when things just don't quite line up. There's no reason why those railings would have lined up or shouldn't have lined up, but they do. So we're just going to do, I'm using the steps from the second cabin in the woods cabin here, and just drop them in now. Because the foundation is so low here, we end up just using the normal stairs here, and you can see there's actually even, this is not even a foundation, it's just a floor that I've put on because the ground had got so low here. So there you go. So that's pretty much the front is done now. I could have left it at that, but I want to improve the overall look of the inside. So one of the things, if you've seen the kind of main hut that I've done for the main mating hut in the sea huts video, is I added these beams across the roof. And so I thought I didn't show you how I'd done that. So we have these roof beams in Workshop Rearranged. Not sure if they have them in USO or not, but it's just a case of getting these in like this. And one of the big things that you do want to make sure is that the first one is completely straight, so that it lines up with the other side of that cross beam. Now, one of the quick ways of doing this, of course, is to glitch in the first one, and then all the first ones, and then you can just snap the other ones in. So this is what I do here. This does take a while to do, but again, I've sped it up because it's once you understand how to do it, it's just a case of getting all the various ones in place. And there is one that doesn't quite line up here, and I have to fix it. So I'll show you. That's the thing with Fallout as well. I think it's this one. The angle can be a bit strange at times, and your biggest indicator is just have a look at whether it lines up with that roof beam or not. And that one, I think that one is obviously out there. So in case of just taking that down, readjusting this one, and then snapping that back into place, just like that. There we go. Pretty simple stuff. Now, I also put these other beams in, these ones here, and these just snap straight to these cross beams, just like that. I do have a bit of an issue trying to get these all to line up, but anyway, we get there in the end. I wanted a bit of a space between the wall and these beams, and again, finding the right beam for the second part was an issue. What I ended up finding is that the shortest one and then the next longest one is the ones that you want. So again, rinse and repeat. Because you're using a foundation floor, they may or may not clip into the floor. And they did fight me a little bit. They were a bit strange for some reason. So they should have predetermined snapping points. Yeah. So I'm trying different heights here. That one doesn't work. So I'm trying to pull it down. It seems to snap in, but there's others that don't. So here we go. Snap. So some of them do, some of them don't. I don't know why that happens, but anyway, we get there. This is the beauty of building in Fallout. Sometimes things cooperate, sometimes they don't. They don't. So there we go. I guess I should have more patience, but Sometimes you just get to that point where you've been building for a while and it just, see this last, it's always the last one. I don't know why it's always the last one, but there we go. So it goes into place. So there we go. So most of the beams figured out. There was one there on the right just about as we went out of shot, but it's all right. I fixed that. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to build some sleeping areas here, and I'm using this railing and just trying to figure out the distance I need to get from the wall. That's roughly about right, and just making sure it's straight, because again, if you don't get this perfectly straight, then it's going to throw the other ones that you put next to it. So that's just made a quick adjustment. That looks a bit right now, so we'll put one of these long pieces, and if you've done it right, it should snap on like that. And again, once you get the first piece in, these should all snap to each other like that. So I end up putting, I think, 4 along here, 4 or 5 along here, and I take one out in the end and build a separate area, which you'll see in the final tour. So pretty simple stuff. A little bit of a raised platform, but it just adds a little bit more dimension and a little bit more interest into the build, rather than just having something against the wall there. And for some reason, I have no idea why, but this wouldn't work. It wouldn't snap in. I have no idea why, because they should all be an equal space. But anyway, we end up just having to improvise here. See, that won't snap in. So I'm going to use one of those wall shock floor wall pieces, whatever they're called. We'll find out in a minute. Yep. So plywood, piece of plywood, and it should just snap straight in there. And I end up taking this one out, this particular one out anyway, and using it for something else. So it's not a big deal. So now we'll decide just to put here. It does make sense to put a bed in, but the mattresses certainly make sense here. If you do some reading on this kind of building, it was very much a community based hut. Now there are some, as you can see, there's some issues there. Like I said, I end up getting rid of this, so it's not really a big drama anyway. But yeah, these buildings tended to be a lot of families used to live in these huts, and therefore it made sense to do what I'm doing with the beds. Now the other thing that I did consider doing is putting an upper level on this hut, and we're just putting some privacy screens in between the beds now. But I did think about putting an upper level on this hut, but I didn't think it was in keeping with the actual way that the hut would have been used in the past. But it certainly is an option for you if you wanted to put another level, like a mezzanine floor or something above. You could do that and use the roof space to build more kind of living areas. And like I said earlier, this hut probably should have been bigger in hindsight, and I probably would have made the area around, or the deck around the edge of it, a little bit shorter, and you got more building space. So if you also wanted to do that, that's an option for you. So move these across. I end up coming up with a fairly simple area, because they're raised. Obviously you need a way to get in, but that's pretty simple to do. So the last thing that I left in here, because there was a lot of footage to go through, but I thought this would be of interest to people. And again, I did make something similar in the Sea Huts build, but you didn't actually see how I did it. So I'm going to build a little bit of a fireplace, and I'm going to use breeze blocks, very similar to one of the fires that you can actually get in the mods now. But the one it didn't quite work, the one in the mod, so I decided to make my own custom one. And the great thing about using these single cinder blocks, breeze blocks, whatever you want to call them, is that they actually, once you put them and click them in with each other, they actually, see how that has now clicked to the other one, and so you can move them around. Now, I don't quite get the positioning of this quite right when I do this, but I don't show you me repositioning it because I didn't see there's any value to it. But just to give you an idea, how maybe an idea for building a surround for your fire. Pretty simple, and it looks as though it all blends in. So I have this big pot here, you'll see in a second, from Super Mutants decoration. I'm not sure which mod they come from, but I think it might be Workshop Rearranged, I'm not sure. This big pot here, and I've actually had to build a special kind of thing so that I can get this at the right height. So I've used some cross beams and then a plank coming down, as you can see there, so that I can get that at the right height so it's over the fire. So there we go, here's the final tour, and pretty pleased with the way this has gone out. Now I could have spent probably another at least half an hour to an hour decorating this, but I just wanted to give you a flavour of how it could potentially look. So obviously we're by the sea, by the river, so there'd be certainly lots of fishing nets and drying racks out here. You know, you can spend a bit of time adding bits and pieces to that. I've put these tanning benches here, and the ones I have, you can actually assign settlers to those. And here's the main hut. So I've put those little ladders in for the beds, so you can get up to your bed. Of course, you've seen this pot here. Little candles and a little bit of a shelf up next to on the privacy screens. You can see I've added some candles and some lanterns up the top. Another cooking pot there. Similar idea. And a little raised platform for eating and sharing food on. So there you go. It's quite a huge structure, but I'm really happy with the way it came out. So I'm going to give you a bonus in a minute, so we'll just have a good wander around here. But I'm going to give you a bonus in a minute because I have, since I've done the sea huts, built another structure, which we will run over to in a minute, just so you can see the outside and how it all looks. And you can see all these lanterns kind of line up along there and whatnot, just to sell the overall look. So since I built the sea huts, I actually built a little church for them, so I'll give you a quick look at that. Yeah, we see the lanterns, it's fine. And it all kind of now blends in nicely, I think. So I hope you enjoyed this build, guys. I've had a lot of it's a pleasure building these for you. Thanks for watching. If you'd like this, leave a like, and we'll catch you next time.